I move that this House condemns the Liberal, National and Shooters and Fishers parties for their attacks on the RSPCA. Madam Acting Speaker, we've seen recently from members of the Liberal and National parties in particular some extraordinarily violent, nasty, virulent attacks upon one of the most respected organisations in the world. And I am deeply offended, and I think most West Australians would be deeply offended if they were aware of the, in relation to the attacks by members of the government, the Liberal and National parties, on the RSPCA. The way that the inquiry has been conducted and the behaviour of Liberal and National Party upper house MPs has been nothing short of disgraceful. The reports that have emerged from the Parliamentary Committee of the belligerence, the attacks, the intimidation of good officers of the Royal Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals is nothing short of disgraceful. The RSPCA, as I said, is one of the most respected organisations in the world. And it's an organisation that I would expect at least 95% of West Australians would overwhelmingly support the work that it does. First of all, the government allowed for this inquiry, this McCarthyist witch hunt, to be established in the upper house. And the second thing the government has allowed, the Liberal and National parties have allowed, is for their members on that committee to intimidate and be rude to witnesses, employees, volunteers of the RSPCA who have appeared before that inquiry, all because they don't like it, all because they have their own axes to grind against the RSPCA. It's a rotten stunt being conducted by the Liberal and National parties against the RSPCA. A rotten, disgraceful stunt. Agriculture Minister Ken Baston has accused the RSPCA of lacking accountability and being driven by ideology. Mr Baston yesterday backed calls for an inquiry into the Animal Welfare Group to investigate how it spent taxpayers' money and applied unique powers to charge people who breached the Animal Welfare Act. A Cabinet Minister, a Liberal Cabinet Minister, has backed this witch hunt, this McCarthyist jihad against the RSPCA being conducted by Liberal and National members of this parliament. So this will be an inquiry that goes for nearly a year, using government resources, parliamentary resources, the no doubt valuable time of Liberal and National upper house MPs, such busy people that they are. You work incredibly hard sitting around drinking coffee in the parliament all day. Nearly a year, pulling resources out of the RSPCA that they could be putting into dealing with animal welfare issues in Western Australia. The fact the Premier of Western Australia is the Vice Patron of the RSPCA is instructive, that having that position, you're not prepared to actually tell your upper house colleagues not to launch an inquiry into this organisation that you are the Vice Patron of. You are the Vice Patron of. The inquiry is asking for an examination of the objectives of the RSPCA. Well, you can go to the objectives on the website if you want. Not that hard to find. I would expect in any other parliament in this country or in the Westminster system that a group of MPs coming along and abusing a respected charity like this, they'd be laughed out of the parliament. They would be laughed out of the parliament. They would be told to pull their heads in and stop this ridiculousness. If you read the transcripts of the inquiry and the carrying on of the Honourable Nigel Hallett and the Honourable Paul Brown, you'll see that they're upset by the prosecutorial function of the RSPCA. Upset that it has this function. I think they're upset full stop about the RSPCA, but then they're upset about the fact it has this prosecutorial function. Now, if the prosecutorial function was being abused and misused, as these guys allege, and that's what they allege, read the transcript, it's been abused and misused as they allege, well then why is it, if it's so vexatious, if they're behaving so badly, the RSPCA, why is it that in 2013-14 the RSPCA launched 22 prosecutions? And of those 22 prosecutions, not one was unsuccessful. Not one was unsuccessful. So if the prosecution function is being misused, and all these people are being forcefully prosecuted, as these guys allude to, why is it everyone's being found guilty? Why is it everyone's being found guilty? In other words, they've got no evidence to back their claims. No evidence to back their claims. They just don't like the RSPCA. Can you imagine if the DPP had a prosecution record of 100% success? Can you imagine if any other organisation with the capacity to prosecute in WA, local governments, other government agencies, fisheries, had the capacity to prosecute in WA, if one of them had a record of 100% success? We'd be lauding them. We'd be saying, my goodness, they are brilliant at the job they do. Wouldn't we? That's what we'd be saying. In this case, the Liberal and National parties, they go out and say, oh, isn't this shocking, we'll launch an inquiry into this organisation. They're doing such a good job, we'll launch an inquiry into them and we'll abuse them before the committee. So we haven't launched a select committee into Indigenous disadvantage. We haven't launched a select committee into the jobs situation in Western Australia. We haven't launched a select committee into the future of the mining industry and how we might diversify it. But what the government has done is launch a select committee into an organisation that receives on an annual basis $500,000 out of a total budget of $30 billion. So you see fit to launch a select committee into an organisation that gets not more than a drop in a swimming pool. A drop in a swimming pool of the total budget of the state of Western Australia. Where's the select committee into the disadvantage faced by Indigenous communities? Where's that? No, you don't launch one of those. You just say you're going to close them down. You launch one into an organisation that receives $500,000 a year from the state government, and for that carries out a prosecutorial function that otherwise the state would have to do, and for that money carries out an education function that otherwise the state would have to carry out. What a genius. What geniuses the Liberal and National parties are to allow for that to happen. What geniuses you are. There is no evidence of any impropriety. There is no evidence of any corruption. There is no evidence of any misuse of money. There is no claims of any of those things. One member of the committee said that the inquiry is necessary because, and I quote, listen to this one, there was no evidence that extremism had not permeated the RSPCA. There's no evidence it had not permeated the RSPCA. Every single member of the government voted in favour of this inquiry. The Leader of the Upper House, the Minister for Education, voted in favour of this inquiry. The Minister for Agriculture called for this inquiry. The Minister for Mental Health in the Upper House voted for this inquiry. If the Premier wanted to stop it, he had a range of ministers in his cabinet who were members of the Upper House and could have exercised their authority. And I would urge every single member of the RSPCA around Western Australia and every single supporter of the RSPCA in Western Australia to send a message to the Liberal and National parties that this inquiry is a disgrace, it should never have occurred, call it off now, do the right thing by animals in our community.